Carmen, Paul doesn't need you exposing him by telling us who he isn't aroused by. Sabrina, girl, that mask you were wearing come all the way off and it's like someone set it on fire and it's blown in the wind and now we're just left with your angry face. What's really good? Hey, it's your girl Yvonne Ossei, Ossei, and I'm back with a review of Ready to Love. This is season 6, episode 10. We start off with where we left off last week, right? One of the guys is getting kicked out today. And Sabrina's the one who has to give them the news. It's Tori that they are sending home, that the women have decided to send home. And Sabrina had a relationship of sorts with Tori. So it begs the question as to how much she really tried to kind of save him in that deliberation process. And by that time, Sabrina had already quite conveniently told him that now she sees him as just a friend. She gets a friend vibe from him, right? That's quite interesting and almost suspicious, since before that he was a suitor. How did he suddenly become a friend? Is it because we are now closer to the end of the journey, so you no longer need as many men to keep you in the competition? Nevertheless, Sabrina has been chosen as the messenger to call up Paul and Tori and tell them that one of them has to go home today. It's really interesting. When she addresses Tori, she becomes very officious. Bearing in mind that was actually the person that she was dating, she becomes very officious and very firm. Her face, there's no smile. It's just all business. When she deals with Paul, she breaks out into this kind of relief and like that's kind of over and done with, and she's just now feeling relaxed, which seems like a relief, like she just wants to get rid of Tori. Now we get the impression that Tori was beginning to maybe bore her. Maybe she saw him as a kind of snotty-nosed kid hanging around her trying to get attention and all that yazz, and she wasn't feeling it. It has been said over and over again by many people that they didn't see any kind of genuine connection, that word again, connection, between Sabrina and Tori, and that she was just kind of having him around so that he could nominate her and keep her in the process closer to the end of the journey. After the nominations, Sabrina and Demetrius have this kind of very weird and affected conversation, right? They're standing face to face and they're saying, okay, so we're gonna try harder, and yeah, we're gonna start now, right? And this is what we're gonna do to create a good relationship or a great bond. And then Joy is watching from afar and she's like, that looks like a very tense conversation. Perhaps the tension that was seen by Joy was an exasperated Sabrina and a tired Demetrius. Sabrina being exasperated because she wants Demetrius at this point to stop being so laid back and kind of chilled and shower her with some attention and affection, something that he hasn't done, by the way, for any woman on the show. In fact, last episode, she was complaining that he was still acting too cool for school. And maybe the tiredness on Demetrius' part is that, do you know what, up until now, she had been dating Demetrius, Tori, and Donovan, right? 3 guys. She had 3 options, and she just kicked Tori out, but she still has 2, right? She wanted Demetrius to shower her with kind of love, affection, make her the focal point of his attention, whilst she's making him just an option. But it does have to be pointed out that all the men who get to the end of Ready to Love in all the past seasons have done this, right? They always have several options up until the last hour. They date like 2, 3 or 4 women and then maybe narrow it down to 2 women and still they don't know. And the women are like, listen, do you want me or do you not want me? Because you're wasting my time. These guys always keep their options open till the very end. And maybe Sabrina's just playing the game. She's seen the show. She's watched the show, right? So she knows exactly what to do. And that's the same with Alexis as well from a previous season. Back to this kind of so-called tense conversations between Demetrius and Sabrina, right? If 2 people like each other and they kind of gel together and they connect, they don't have to stand around giving dissertations and we're going to do this and it has to be like whatever. Also, I'm not too sure about this connection because Demetrius has that kind of look. He looks like that kind of guy that in the outside world, he probably has a lot of options. And that may be why he is so laid back and relaxed, right? Because in the past, he's been sitting back, chilling while the women chase him. I think that's how it's been. So I think he's laid back and he's going to be laid back, right? Because if it doesn't work out with Sabrina, he knows in the real world that, you know, he's got no issue finding women. Sabrina, on the other hand, has had many connections with guys on this show, and it's really kind of just feeling like she has no feelings for any of them. And we move on. So Dakia and Clifton are on the sofa having a conversation. because Clifton has spent all his time with Joy, which is one of the other women that he's dating and he likes. He's doing that because he likes her. While speaking to him, Dakia becomes really emotional and she starts crying. And do you know what? I really wish that she would have held it together. I wish that she wouldn't have fallen apart and kind of cried in front of Clifton, because I don't think Clifton ever really liked her as much as he said he did, right? He was saying one thing with his mouth, oh yeah, I have a really strong connection with you, I like you, blah, blah, blah. But he was spending all his time and energy with Joy. I wish Dakia would have pulled away from him much sooner in the process and not got as emotionally invested as she did. Furthermore, if I'm being all that honest, I don't know how interested he even is in Joy, right? In the previous episode, he had spent the night with Joy, right? They slept in the same bed. And we're going to assume that they had some type of intimate relations. And then the next morning, she sat on the chair outside with him and she's asking him where they stand. And he's saying he doesn't know. This is after spending the night with her in his bed. Joy, you should have stayed in your own damn bed until you knew where you stood with him, if it mattered to you in that order, because you can't do it retrospectively. You can't sleep with him and then wonder what's going on afterwards. There's a jacuzzi scene. Demetrius is in the jacuzzi with Sabrina, and then Clifton's in the jacuzzi and Joy climbs in later. So Sabrina's hugging Demetrius. She kind of hugs him and laughs, and then her eyes wander somewhere else. It's almost as if her eyes sometimes are disconnected from the rest of her body and her body language, as if they're not singing the same song or telling the same story. And it makes me wonder how real her feelings are, because it always seems like her mind is elsewhere, thinking something else and maybe plotting and planning something else. Clifton also doesn't make eye contact with Joy when they get in the pool together, right? He's just come back from that conversation with Dakia, right? Where she was crying and she was emotional and he gave her a hug after he kind of said that they wouldn't be together or whatever, however they worked it out. So his mind is still there. And if you look at his eyes, when he's talking to Joy, Joy is making direct eye contact with him. And his eyes are kind of like, yeah. This is another thing I've noticed. Well, I see that she gives more kind of intentional eye contact, intimate eye contact towards him than he gives towards her. And Joy leans in to give him a kiss on the mouth, which he reciprocates. And here's my point. Joy seems to initiate most of the intimacy between herself and Clifton. This echoes the last episode where they all got to this big mansion and Joy went and put her bag on his bed to state that this is the room I'm sleeping with. I'm sleeping in a room with you. Okay, so you basically kind of put it on his lap, if you will. I don't know. But she kind of initiated, I'm going to sleep in a bed with you. And here again, she is initiating a kiss in the pool. And you'll see again later on that she initiates a kiss at the dinner table. She actually stands up and kisses him first. And I do wish she'd kind of kick back, lay back, and allow this guy to be intentional towards you, to demonstrate some of that interest, to make the first move, to do a bit of chasing, something. It's very hard to tell how much Clifton does like Joy, because Joy always initiates everything. You can't really gauge how much he would have done hadn't she done that. Miss Missing in Action, Tina, finally arrives at the retreat, which she was supposed to turn up on Friday, and I think she may have turned up on the Sunday or whatever, the day, a few hours or whatever before they were due to leave the retreat. She only had prior connections with Paul and Donovan. Okay, so everyone's giving her the cold shoulder. They're like, oh, why are you here? Why turn up now? And the women, the energy the women are getting is very nasty, and I'm really uncomfortable with it. They all gave her the cold shoulder and made her feel extremely uncomfortable. And here's my thing. The only people who should be bothered by Tina's departure or arrival are Paul and Donovan. The people that she actually had emotional connections with, or she was dating, whatever. Why are the rest of the men and the rest of the women being so aggressive and being bullish towards her? Focus on the connections that you're making with whoever you're dating. Focus on that and deal with whatever issues you need to deal with. Stop kind of giving all your energy to Tina and harassing this poor woman who's there by herself. So Tina feels isolated. She goes out and sits on this bench outside. And then Carmen, Miss Snakish, Miss Manipulative Carmen, slithers towards her and says, oh, how are you? You're back. And what's up with you? Tina foolishly reveals that she didn't think she had a connection with any of the men there. And that was the worst thing she could have done, I tell you, because Carmen was only looking for trouble. She felt intimidated by Tina's return because she too, if I'm not mistaken, had a connection with, I think it's Donovan. So she just didn't want Tina coming back and kind of messing up her game for her and kind of taking the attention of one of the guys that she's interested in. That was all it was. And as you'll see later, she uses this information against Tina. So we move on to some restaurant dates, okay? So we have Clifton and Joy having a date. Clifton's already sat there. Joy turns up. He gets up and she rushes towards him and hugs him, jumps up on him, hugs him with her arms and the legs, as if it's a reverse piggy bank in a restaurant. Sis, this is just a bit too much. Grown people, you guys look like you're in your 40s or something. You don't need to hug him with your arms and your legs, especially in a public vicinity, in a restaurant no less. So as they're having a conversation, Madame breaks out and lets him know that how she feels for him is more than like, right? So I guess in the scale of feelings, you would have like, and then I guess more than like and maybe love. And so when she says how she feels for him is more than like, to me, she's telling him that she's beginning to fall in love with him. That's the impression I get. And again, she's the one to say this before he says it. Then he says it, and in that reciprocation, I can't tell whether he's saying that because he feels he has to kind of reply and keep her sweet and say, yeah, how I feel for you is more than like. Or if he genuinely more than likes her and he's also on the path to loving her. I can't tell because, again, she's making all the moves. And then later on, she gets up on the table, stands up, like I said earlier, bends over to kiss him, and then he kisses her back. And then afterwards, she thanks him, thank you so much, I appreciate it. Thank you for what? For coming to a restaurant and, I don't know. It's given too much, right? You guys in this program have only met each other a couple of weeks. This program doesn't film over a very long period of time. You don't really know anyone that much yet. You need to give it a while and get to know people. So giving him all this, how I feel for you is more than like, maybe closer to love, and kissing him first, putting your bag on his bed, all those things are giving off a type of energy that a guy can feed off. Maybe a guy like Clifton can feed off and think, okay, this is going to be a kill. This may be an easy kill. Kia and Paul are at a restaurant, right? They're having another date. And he happens to remember that she likes red wine. And she's so impressed. She's like, my God, you remember that I like red wine? That is so amazing. You get brownie points for that. That is so sweet. Anyone that sat down with you more than once at any bar or restaurant can remember what drink you like. This is not a big deal, right? Any bartender that served you more than once will even remember, right, what drink you like. Any of your friends can remember what drink you like. It doesn't necessarily suggest that he's taken that much of an interest in you. He would need to do something a bit deeper than remember the drink you like for him to win all these brownie points that you want to give him. Okay? Perhaps she shouldn't get too overexcited with these non-gestures, is what I think of them, right? She sees it as a big gesture. I see it as a non-gesture. And getting so excited and creating this image of this great guy, of him, when the real him is actually sitting there. And I don't necessarily think the two things marry up. And then she's creating something out of nothing because she wants him to be that perfect guy that she has in her mind. So Paul's given her the works, right? He's given her the lyrics. You're the most perfect woman. Any guy that doesn't see that is missing out. Any guy that looks in you can tell you're the real deal, blah, blah, blah. And it just feels like what guys just generally say to any woman to make her feel special. That's how it feels to me. That's how it looks. So in her camera interview about that date, she says how Paul is really stepping up. He's making her feel seen and wanted and all of that good stuff. And again, I don't see it. I think he's getting closer to the end of the game. The connections that he had have kind of dwindled off. Tina left or she's leaving, whatever. So now he's all of a sudden love bombing her and showering her with attention and affection and making her feel real good so she can keep voting him in. On the date itself, Daki is telling Paul about how she's always wanted that kind of fairy tale love story. She likes the idea of love. She loves love and all that kind of stuff. She's willing to put herself out there and feel love again. These are all the things that a guy like Paul would pick up on and feed off and think, okay, she likes love, okay. right, she loves this. Okay, well, I can tell her that she's that, and I can pretend to be this. And, she's telling him effectively what to say back to her when she says all the things that she likes, right? He's just feeding it back to her and making her feel good. So the cast have a group meeting. First thing I noticed was Sabrina's face, and I think the camera panned into Sabrina first in the edit. The mask she was wearing has completely, like I said, flew away, been burnt somewhere, right? It is gone. That happy-go-lucky, cheery, cute, feminine type Sabrina, that is gone, and we're left with this grim-faced Sabrina looking like someone's died. I'm thinking, how, Sway? Girl, you should be happy. You had, up until recently, you just kicked Tori out. Before that, you had 3 whole connections, right? 3 different guys that were kind of interested in you, blah, blah, blah. So how can you be sat here looking so miserable? And could it be because this is what happens when you kind of put on an act? Perhaps when you have no genuine interest in any of these guys, nothing is ever good enough for you. So, you're not going to be happy, even though on paper you should be happy because you're getting everything you want. So the host, Nephew Tommy, asks Clifton where he sees himself with Joy in 6 months' time. And then Clifton laughs it off and says he sees himself on a nude beach with Joy in 6 months' time. Wrong answer. That was Clifton's opportunity to say that he saw himself in a committed relationship with her, living with her or married to her in the next 6 months. But he chose to say that he sees himself with her on a nude beach, for God's sake. What does that even mean? And if Joy was paying attention, she would pick up on these signs. Dakia is sitting there looking very salty, right? Very slightly kind of jealous and, salty about the fact that her and Clifton had kind of cut ties and he was going to pursue Joy. But Dakia, sis, I don't think you have anything to feel salty about because Clifton isn't coming across like a committal type of guy. He's planning on being on a nude beach with her in 6 months' time. He's not planning to be anywhere serious with her or in any position that's serious with her. So look, Dakia, you probably were spared heartbreak and heartache because you were already too invested in him, in Clifton, too soon. Joy has taken Clifton off your hands. She's taken that problem off your hands. So you actually should be happy. You've got nothing to be salty about. So also at this meeting, Tommy asked the group about Tina, right? And Madame Carmen, the lady who went out and sat with her and got the information from her, extracted that information from her, says, oh, she told me that she wasn't interested in any of the guys. She didn't have a connection with any of the guys here. And you know why she did that? She didn't do that for Tommy's information, as he asked. She did that so that the guys that that Tina previously had a connection with could think, oh, she said that she wasn't interested in me, so, forget about her. And then kind of lean more towards Carmen. So Tina is essentially competition for her. But anyway, Carmen snitched completely. This is Carmen, Also, for Tina to get voted off by the guys, that was Carmen's aim. Nevertheless, when you play silly games, you win silly prizes because as Carmen is moving around, snitching on people and exposing people, it seems to fall apart between her and Playboy Paul. Paul says to Tommy and everyone in the group that Carmen doesn't really reveal anything about herself, and it just seems like she's asking more and more questions about who he is, what he does, how he maneuvers, so that she can figure out whether he meets her needs, and not in a good way, as in what can you do for me type thing. And then Carmen is complaining likewise that Paul isn't being transparent about the level or the depth of his connection with Dakia. That makes her feel insecure. So Paul and Carmen start bickering back and forth. And it's hard to take sides because they're both suspicious people and they're both right actually in what they say about each other. And this is that same attitude that we saw in Paul when he first started this show, right? He was calling himself PO, post office, meaning that he delivers. So he was feeling very arrogant, very cocky. But that attitude he came with is what we're seeing again. Yeah, he hid it, after he had a few arguments with people and it didn't really work out. He hid that attitude. But somehow it's popped up again, Carmen reveals what she says was a personal conversation, a private conversation between herself and Paul. And Paul allegedly said that he wasn't aroused by Dakia or words to that effect. So whilst Paul and Carmen are going back and forth, bickering and backering, she decides to expose this, right? And then Dakia sat there. Everyone is like, oh my God, nephew Tommy, everyone is kind of a bit disturbed and thinking this is just ridiculous and childish and blah, blah, blah. And Paul said, you know, no, he didn't say that. And even if it was true, even if Paul did say that he wasn't aroused by Dakia, Carmen says that's not your business to tell. It's not your story to tell. It's not your message to give. I don't believe that he allocated you to be a messenger of that. Whatever he said or didn't say to you, it was in private. The repeat pattern of what we see in Carmen is that she gains somebody's confidence. That person tells her something, and then she comes out to the group and exposes people to try and kind of win points or make herself look better than the other woman. And it's really not cool. Carmen has also been spiteful to Dakia in the past. If you cast your mind back to a previous episode, there was this type of double date. Eric, who was a chef that both Dakia and Carmen were dating at the time, Eric came with his friends. He wanted his friends to meet Carmen and Dakia and help him decide who would be a best fit for him. And she was being very mean and very kind of bitchy towards Dakia. So she has been spiteful to Dakia in the past. And Dakia is saying that, you know, in the interview that she has to the camera, she was saying that Carmen's issue with her is the fact that
the incident was actually between Eric and Dakia, where Eric touched her private parts in public.
Huge no-no for Dakia. And she came back and reported to Nephew Tommy. Nephew Tommy said he will speak to Eric, and Eric even eliminated himself out of that whole mess. Dakia is saying that Carmen is angry with her because of that incident that happened between her and Eric, which meant that Eric left the show, and that was also a connection for Carmen. So Carmen lost out because of that incident between Eric and Dakia. We get back to this cast meeting, and so now Carmen and Dakia are having an issue, and Dakia essentially shuts it down and says, I'm all natural and everything about you is kind of purchased in a store. So so there you go. And, you know, Dakia may have a point in that Carmen definitely uses her sexuality to kind of not bring her closer or get to know the guys, but to kind of manipulate them, right? And to kind of coerce them. So she kind of is very touchy, very flirty, says quite suggestive things, whereas Dakia is a bit more subtle in how she presents. So in his video interview to the camera, talking about this incident that's happened at the group meeting, Donovan says he's seen a side of Carmen that he doesn't like. He thinks it's childish, the way she's behaving. And I think that as a man, he can't feel very good about this because, you know, Carmen is saying with her mouth that she likes you, but right now she's using all her time and energy to fight over Paul or to fight Paul. It can't feel very good for you as a potential suitor looking on at her, you know, having a fight with a different guy. Maybe where Carmen's interest lies. So also at this group meeting, Sabrina talks about her connections now, which is left with Demetrius and Donovan. And these guys are quite, these guys are surprised by what this girl is saying. You know, she's saying quite negative things that they thought that they had either gotten over or didn't matter anymore, you know, and to them it felt like she was bringing things up out of nowhere to create faults and problems with them that doesn't exist, if you get what I mean. She said that she felt that Donovan hadn't healed from a previous marriage, and she felt like he still needed to get over that. But again, Donovan thought they were good with that and they'd move on past that. Also with Demetrius, she says that Demetrius isn't giving her his all. She went to meet Demetrius and his friend at a restaurant. The friend said that Demetrius needed a woman that would submit. And straight away, Sabrina was like, nothing to do with me. You know, I'm not getting it. You know, I don't do this submission business. So these are issues that she's raised now. Sabrina is saying that Demetrius is saying that when he's in a full relationship with her, where they are committed, then he will give her all of the things, all the love and affection and attention that she wants. And she's saying, how can she get into a relationship with him when all she's hearing is what he would do as opposed to seeing what he would do, right? So right now, everything he's promising is just words, and she can't commit to just words. And then there's a funny moment where she kind of, the camera shows her face, and she's grinding her jaw, right? She's that kind of tense. And this is not a Sabrina we've seen before. She's kind of like, it feels like she's over it. And, you know, she's about to pop and explode. And Donovan reveals something. And I think he revealed it because she kind of caught him off guard with the, I don't think he's ready for a relationship, that whole thing. It reveals that they had a conversation off camera, right, where they were kind of bickering back and forth, and she snapped at him and she said, "You'll go home just like the last guy." And who was the last guy that they sent home? Tori, one of the other guys that she herself was dating. So yeah, Donovan's saying that she's making that threat to him. Sabrina denies this, but for some reason, because of the way she's wanted to control situations with the guys, because of the way she's demanded attention and demanded this and that, it's made me feel like she may have said that. Your boy and nephew Tommy scheduled a meeting with Tina, who also, again, didn't turn up to the group meeting. He waited for her outside for an hour and she didn't turn up. But I don't know what's going on with Tina. Yes, I don't believe that the group should have been aggressive towards her and bullying her. But I do think that if she wants to go and just eliminate herself, just eliminate yourself. Why do you stay in the show and then you miss this episode, that episode, and you don't turn up to filming? Why put yourself through that drama? People eliminate themselves all the time. Just eliminate yourself, sis, and be free. Alrighty, it's a wrap. That was Ready to Love, Season 6, Episode 10. I have been your girl, Yvonne Ossei, Ossei. You can follow me on social media. We can connect. Instagram and TikTok at Yvonne_Ossei. That's YVONNE_OSSEI. On Twitter is at Miss Ossei, MISSOSSEI. And all other platforms, Yvonne Ossei. Since you're here, go ahead and check out the rest of the playlist and the other videos I've got going on this channel. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, be good. See you soon.